the day that we dedicate to the unification of Jerusalem, or just put Jerusalem in the center. There are different ways to look at Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not just the land. Jerusalem is a concept. So Jerusalem, the word itself means Yerushalem. They will see peace or whole. The word peace and whole in Hebrew is the same word. And so with all the conflicts and wars, right? Jerusalem is probably the most contested piece of land in the world. Think of the conquest over the years of every possible empire that ever existed wanted that place. Of course, it's strategically, geographically centered and very important, but we're not just looking at that. We're looking at the idea of Jerusalem as the heaven comes to earth, the house of God. God decided that His glory will dwell in that piece of land. Now, of course, God is everywhere and all the time, but there's something about a specific holy, designated place. And the word for the temple in Hebrew is literally the place of holiness. Beit HaMikdash, the house of holiness. So God is, in a sense, the God's presence, Shekhinah, is present there in ways that it's not present in other places. So, and I could testify to that. And, of course,
What's interesting, today we had the second reading was the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. So that whole scripture from the book of Revelation. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
New Jerusalem coming down.
Wow, wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Unbelievable. We didn't plan this. So this is incredible. The word Jerusalem has also, it's a unique name because it is the ending. Yerushalayim in Hebrew is the ending of two. When you have something that represents two, it has a special ending in the language. So, for example, two hands. So one hand is yad, two hands is yadayim. One eye is ayin, two eyes are einayim. So it's only for the double. It's not for any other ending. If it's three, it's already, well, you can't do it with this, but let's say bakbuk, right? It's a bottle. So if it's more than two, it will be bakbukim. Okay, so it's not ayin, right? It doesn't have that special ending. So Yerushalayim has that ending of two. So we talk about the heavenly Jerusalem and the earthly Jerusalem. And the way to access the heavenly Jerusalem is through the earthly Jerusalem. That's the key. So you can't say, oh, you know what, I'm going to bypass earth and get directly to heaven. It doesn't work this way. Heaven comes to earth through our actions. We bring heaven to earth. So the key to entering the heavenly Jerusalem or bringing the heavenly Jerusalem down is the way we treat each other. And a lot of times, we think of holiness, living life up there, and I would even compare it to the Vatican. And with the new Pope, of course, and, there's a lot of administration. Holiness doesn't just mean that you walk on water. It means that you have to create the situation, you have to create the house, you have to maintain the house. So the holiness comes through the way we maintain the house. do we permit, how do we prioritize the budget of the house? Who do we bring in? What do we spend the money on? So these are all elements that God is testing us through our daily life. So that's really what the Jerusalem means, that the heavenly Jerusalem will come when we will have peace between us, and that, of course, Messianic time, that will come through a lot of turbulences and, the birth pains. But once it's going to be there, people will see that Yerushalem, they will see holiness, or they'll see wholesomeness and peace, the same word in Hebrew. So it means don't give up, don't despair. Just because we live through darkness, like Psalm 23, you have to go through. And today's theme, actually, of the Song of the Sea that we will dive into, pun intended, we will see all these ideas in the text. We're ready to delve into the text. Last time, which was a long time ago, I know it was almost 2 months, we gave the background and introduction to the Song of the Sea, but today we'll go directly into the text.
And before we start, if any of you have been in the service, thank you for your service. I know we're celebrating memory of those who have fallen this weekend, but I'd like to take it a step further. Not just to those who've lost their lives, but I would also like us to remember the living dead among veterans, people who are homeless, people who are lost, locked in their own heads. They're dead. They're dead. And we have to remember them. In fact, they're, I believe, more important for us to remember in a concrete way than even those who have died and given themselves. Their struggle is over. They have reached their reward. They are celebrating the ultimate Sabbath. But we still have so many. And I bring that up only because I was a child of Vietnam. And I can remember those veterans coming home and being chastised, hated, and I couldn't quite figure out why. Now, obviously, many of them are still suffering. Those are the walking dead. But it's a very interesting concept. I really believe that they were mocked and ridiculed only because I think what happens is, for us, in a so-called Christian nation, God was a tribal God. God was our God. God was on our side. And guess what? We lost. We lost the war. God was angry. A lot of people's minds. So who do we blame? We can't blame the so-called adults in the room who sent the children away to fight. So let's blame those who ultimately came back, because we can't blame anyone else for this war. And those poor men and those who have suffered since then and before then, let's pray for them, because I see a picture of today of a casket with the American flag over it, and I can't help thinking that so many of these men and women are locked in the caskets of their own heads at this point. And so let us also remember them today, this weekend.
Absolutely. You want to come in really close to you. So absolutely, we have to remember 1.2 million Americans since the Revolutionary War that gave up their lives so we could sit here and we could be free as much as possible. So definitely. So it really is nice that it coincides with the idea of the Day of Jerusalem, which is ultimately symbolizes freedom. Okay. The text is on page 374. On the bottom, it's 75 in the English, chapter 15. And we, just to reiterate one idea that it really goes through the whole song. It's a song that Moses and the people of Israel sang when they crossed the Sea of Reeds, but it's a song that will be sung in the future, in the ultimate redemption. That's really, it's very interesting that we're reading it on Jerusalem Day, because that's what it means. It's the ultimate redemption. So there was redemption here, but it really is referring to the ultimate redemption. We'll see it through the text here. This song became the basis for our liturgy and a lot of Psalms. It appeared in a lot of Psalms. It appears in Isaiah chapter 13 when he reiterates these themes of ultimate redemption, and he uses the same words that are in the Song of the Sea. Why is it? The question is, why did this become a central theme in our prayer? Because there is a and I don't know, maybe you can comment on it from the Catholic perspective, but in the Jewish law, prayer, liturgy, has to be adjacent to redemption. That the idea of prayer has to be coincided with redemption. So, for example, the Midrash, the story, tells us that the situation that the Israelites were in this just before crossing the Sea of Reeds was not planned originally, because God already plagued the Egyptians. He got them out, and then the Egyptians were chasing them again, right? And they were stuck between a rock and a hard place, but really didn't have anywhere to go. And God created that situation on purpose so they could look up to God and that they should pray to God. So Moses, it says in the text that he shouted at God. And shouting is one of the forms of prayer. It means it's more intense. So God said, okay, I heard you. Now you can cross the sea. So prayer is always in the context of redemption. So we want God to react. So we'll see it through the themes here too. Okay, so in Catholicism, it's the same.
Well, one thing I just thought of is the liturgy. The word liturgy is made up of two Greek words, and Gia. Leia is the people, and Gia is work. So the work of the people. So we are participating in worship. When we are worshiping, we're doing liturgy. We're doing the liturgy. It's our job. So I like to always point that out. That's why, in a way, we in the liturgy we have the Lord be with you, and with your spirit. There's a back and a forth kind of going on there, and it's our job. It's our work that we do, and then it's our service. It's the other word too that gets stuck in there too. It translates.
Actually,
service.
in Hebrew, the word for service and worship is the same word as work.
So the work of the people, the service that we render God, and it, of course, has its impact on us. We are elevated. We are brought into the divine relationship, and so we are uplifting ourselves by our work. And I think it's too bad that we miss that. I think some of the stuff that I've heard along the way. As a younger guy, oh, Mass is fun. It's a celebration. Yes, it is. I think it is, but not for everybody. Oh, it's fun. what's this? I have to sit here for an hour and, if I don't get the idea that it's my job, it's my work. So we have an obligation to God to bring God to the earth and for us to go toward heaven. And then if we have that connection, the divine connection, things will work out better. Not perfectly yet, but better. And so the liturgy is our participation in the divine life. So we have questions.
And it's a lot of work to bring heaven to earth. I know after my service on Shabbat, I'm exhausted. Yeah.
With the Revelations reading for the different year coincide with the Jerusalem.
Now it'll be a different calendar. Yeah,
So it's just, this is the one that it's up.
It just happened this year. I mean, it's always around the same time, but it's not always the same day. The Hebrew calendar.
Our calendar would be every 3 years.
Right. But Jerusalem Day is always on the Hebrew calendar or the
Yeah, always the Hebrew. Yeah, the 27th of Iyar. So we're the 27th of Iyar, and so they're in the somehow in Jewish mysticism, they pointed two important dates. One is the 5th of Iyar. They're both in Iyar, and so the 5th of Iyar, and then the 27th of Iyar. And it's interesting that they've already said it 150 years ago, and the 5th of Iyar happened to be the day that Israel declared its independence in 1948. So, and Jerusalem Day in the 27th of Iyar. So these are two components that the earthly, so the Independence Day was won by a war, essentially, but then Jerusalem Day is the kind of the spiritual component of it. So there are two components that have to go together, the body and the spirit. So, okay. So page 375 says, then Moses and the children of Israel chose to sing the song to the Lord, and they said the following: I shall sing to the Lord, for he exalted above the arrogant, having hurled horse with its rider into the sea. So I'm just going to go through this quickly because we have talked about this concept. The word as, then, Moses and the children of Israel. The word in Hebrew suggests that yashir, he will sing in the future. And so normally the whole song is in past tense, but this word is in future tense, and that's why we know that it's future. It was a song for that time, but also for the future. And of course, we'll see it also in the theme throughout the song. So we will sing to the Lord because he is exalted above the arrogant. So arrogant, of course, means that who was the arrogant? Pharaoh. Pharaoh and the Egyptians were arrogant. And of course, their leader, Pharaoh, was the most arrogant person. And why is he considered arrogant? And this is the whole song will shift the narrative, because when Moses and Aaron came to him and said, this is what the Lord said to us, he said, who is this Lord that I will listen to? And even after the 10 plagues, he couldn't still bow down to the Lord. And he chased the people of Israel. So he is the most arrogant, right? And arrogance from the biblical perspective, and I would say theological, is that if you think that your hand achieves everything, if we feel that we do everything, and we definitely participate, but there's no God who seals our action. That's arrogant. And where was the first arrogance in the Bible? I always say, when I asked it in my congregation, everybody knows already that I'm pointing to the Garden of Eden. Everything starts in the Garden of Eden. So when the serpent said to Eve, right, oh, don't worry about it. What God told you, right? He said, God said, don't do it. He said, don't worry. It's just, telling you that so you won't be like him, right? So that's the beginning, of course, of arrogance. And every time we see those characters, you literally can put those characters on top of each other. It's the same character, just in different name, in different situation. So we have arrogance in the world, and there's humility. And we spoke about how, right, the Messiah is a humble, riding the donkey. So humility, how do you bring heaven to earth? That key that we're talking about, the Jerusalem of heaven, to bring it to earth, it's through humility. And it translates in the actions that we live by. So if I have $100 and I want to keep all the $100 and not give back to the community because I think that if I give it, I'm never going to get it back, then that's arrogance. But if you know that you're not here alone and you give and you give God the option to the opportunity to give you back, that's how humility works. So that's what it is.
Okay. Also, just the idea of the donkey, the Messiah on the donkey, and then the soldier here is being hurled down on the horse. So a horse, if he's arrogant in the sense of, I've got power.
Yeah, the horse represents war, and the donkey represents work. So it's a more humble animal. And the horse and the rider, we spoke about that idea of the structure was hurled into the sea. God doesn't want this to exist in the world. He wants to drown the concept of somebody riding somebody else in that sense. So he hurled it into the sea. So that's the title of the sea, that God saved us and he destroyed arrogance in this world. And the reason we know this is not just for that time is because I guess it's similar to the Catholic understanding of the returning of Jesus, and because a process may have started then, but we know that arrogance was not totally drowned at the Sea of Reeds, right? We still have it. So it can't be that this was the end. So it is definitely singing for the future redemption. The might and the vengeance of God was salvation for me. This is my God, and I will build him a sanctuary, the God of my father, and I will exalt him. So everything you'll hear in the language is that God is exalted here. So when you're arrogant, you feel like you're exalted. And the opposite is to exalt God. And God we felt that God saved us personally. This is my God. It's not, this is our God. This is my God. There's personal providence. And if you remember the 10 plagues, that we divided the 10 plagues to 3 different levels of disbelief of people. And the ultimate was to show people that God doesn't only exist and can intervene in nature, but God is a personal God that saves us specifically. So that's really what it's saying. So it's really listing all the theology. This song has all the nutrition, all the theological nutrition that will carry us through the Bible. The Lord, so the sanctuary, the idea of the sanctuary is very important because God is our sanctuary. God, of course, protected us. So the idea of a sanctuary, the first thing that God commanded the Israelites before entering the land was to create sanctuary cities. I know the term sanctuary cities now is very loaded, but that's not what it meant. I mean, in one sense, it's the same, that people run away to those cities and they feel protected, that they're not going to be killed if they go there, and then they only going to be they'll have the due process, right? The process that is due to them before the judgment. It's not going to be capricious judgment. Somebody's going to just be angry and come at them and kill them and out of revenge. So God is my sanctuary in the sense that God protects us and we can run to God. The Lord is master of war. His name is the Lord, is Adonai. But the idea also here is that God is and I think this is kind of where we stopped last time, that we feel, and again, I know that in Catholicism, many times there's a view of God in the Hebrew Bible as more of a vengeful God, and kind of the New Testament more preaches more for peaceful conduct, but definitely from the Jewish theology, sometimes of course, you strive for peace. There's no doubt about that, but peace doesn't always come in peaceful way. So God knows how to also fight. Is a person of war. Master, the word master here in Hebrew is actually literally ish milchama, a person, a man of war. And again, war can be, you can take it more thematically and say that war is not just physical war, but the internal war and all that. But there is the simple level that God literally sometimes there's no choice and we have to engage in war. Like I would say what's going on now, of course. We're very sorry with what's happening in Gaza. But sometimes wars are essential. Pharaoh's chariots and army he threw in the sea, and the pick of his officers were mired in the sea of reeds. So God took the best that Egypt had. So what's the song? Hit me with your best shot, right? So Egypt did that. This was the best. This was the worst. So in a sense, the process started of healing the world from this arrogance because God uprooted it. Like when you cultivate your garden and you weed your garden, there's one thing to cut the weed or root it, right? So God uprooted it, but it's still there. The effects are still there. And Egypt in the Jewish sources is considered the worst that ever existed in the world in terms of idol worshiping or worshiping themselves in many ways. So everything beyond that is the process that we try to heal. Deep waters covered them. They descended in the depth like stone. So what it means is also, like stone, it means that it was fast. God shot them in like a stone, like an arrow. So they drowned fast. They went down very fast. So what it means also, it means that in its time, God will hurry it, right? We hear it from the prophets. So when it's time, it's going to be done quickly. So like stone, they went down. So any of their resistance did not really help them. It went right down. And stone, again, there's something about the idea of the stone, the imagery of stone, that was Pharaoh's heart. God hardened his heart, but in the beginning, he hardened his own heart. So now his heart was like a stone. He was like not a human being, but a stone. And God tells us later on that he will give us a new heart. Actually, it's in the context of signing a new covenant with us, the New Testament. It's in the same context that God will give us a new heart. Instead of a heart of stone, literally, the reference is heart of stone, he'll give us a heart of flesh and blood. So if you're a stone, you'll go down this fast into the water. Your right hand, Lord, is glorified with strength. Your right hand, the Lord smashes the enemy. So the right hand of God is a reference to God's will. So if God wills something, it happens and nothing can stop it. So he crushes everything. It's like the reference that was given by the Talmud is that just like a person moves their hand and there's a glass on the table and it smashes, right? So this is the imagery. In your abundant grandeur, you shelter your opponent, you shatter your opponent, you send forth your wrath, it consumes them like straw. So what is not here in the translation is the reference to the nose, to the nostrils. So in Hebrew, it's with the breath of your nostrils. So think of what do you call that animal, the dragon. So you see a dragon with fire coming out of their nostrils. This is exactly the image here, that God has breath through his nostril, and that fire, because it burns everything like straw. So why the image of the nose? So there are a few levels here. If you remember that when God created man, he breathed his breath through Adam's nostrils. So the nose is the breath, really is the connection, because the nose is only breath, right? The mouth sometimes we breathe through our mouth, but every doctor will tell you it's not the best way to breathe. But the nose is the breath, not the mouth. The mouth can speak, the mouth can chew, eat, everything, but the nose is for breath. So the nose is the connection between God and man. Spiritually, of course, gives them life, but it's like the tree of life that God, if you don't behave correctly, I will remove you from the tree of life, from my breath, just like in the Garden of Eden. So the image of God's nose has two sides. One, when it describes God's patience, when he's not fast to anger. It says that God he's erech apayim. He has long nose. That's the kind of the idea. So has long nose. So it means that he is cooling down his breath, right? Because the nose is supposed to cool down the air, or to moderate the air that comes into our brain. So God, if you have long nose, it moderates more. So that's the image. So on the high holidays, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, we pray to God as Moses prayed to him after the incident of the golden calf. And he prayed to him and he said, God, you erech apayim, v'rav chesed, you're patient and you are merciful. So that's the one image of the nose. But the second one is, if you're angry, right? So it's going to come as fire. So here, God was literally on fire. And again, there's the image of fire and water. God blew fire out of his nostrils and the water split. So this is a the water were heaped. The waters were heaped up. So straight as a wall stood the running water. So it did. Sorry, at a blast from your nostril, the waters were heaped up. Straight as a wall stood the running water. The deep waters congealed in the heart of the sea. Okay, so it didn't matter how deep the water was. Again in Hebrew, it's only waters. There's no word, no singular form for water. Just like Jerusalem, life. There are certain words in Hebrew that are only in the plural, and not actually in the plural in the two, right? Not just the regular plural, but in the double. So mayim, water, is plural. It means the water above and the water below. When God split the water, when he created the world, means that the earth is a mirror of heaven. There's a reciprocity between heaven and earth. And then the enemy declared, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide, plunder, I will satisfy my lust with them, I will unsheathe my sword, my hand will impoverish them. So it's very clear what was in the mind of our enemies to do to us. Again, for me, learning about the Holocaust for many years, but there was something about October 7th, 2023 that was, because it happened now. It happened here and now, and it was filmed, and they were proud of what they were doing. So think of this image. It was basically the same image. And then you blew with your wind, and the sea enshrouded them, and the mighty sank like lead in water. Okay, again, the idea of lead, that they sunk very, very quickly. Who is like you among the heavenly powers? The Lord. Who is like you, mighty in holiness, too awesome to praise, doer of wonders. So this is a reference to the future that we don't even know. We can't really put in words what God can do. And this is one of my, for me, making peace with when we started teaching together. And I wanted to understand, Christianity and Catholicism. And I took classes in school. And then I realized at the end that it may be my faith or not, but what I know is that, with all the debate that was going on, definitely in the medieval times between Jews and Christians, that resulted in a lot of conflict and a lot of bloodshed. I don't know what I would have done had I lived in the Middle Ages, but from my perspective, I thought I may understand or not, or the faith of God becoming a human being, but what I said to myself, and this is how I solved it for myself, and of course I believe in it, that I may not be there. It's not my faith. But as a faithful person that believes that God created this whole world, I don't know what God can and cannot do. If God wants to come to this world as a human being, all the explanation to try to negate that is kind of futile. I mean, I don't know what he can do and can't do. So this is what it's telling us, that we don't know. So we have to live from that point on with this amazement. This Rabbi Heschel calls it constant amazement, that we have as human beings. The best way to live is with this constant amazement that we don't know what God can bring. So every day that we wake up, we just have to be open to what God can do. And of course, this is the day the Lord has made. We will celebrate it.
The word we use for that is wonder. Heschel used, that was a translation of one of his, this concept of Heschel, the word wonder, awe. So when they speak of the fear of the Lord, it has nothing to do with neurotic fear. When we talk about the fear of the Lord, we're talking about the awesomeness of God, right? As if you're standing in front of someone who is just awesome. Picture yourself standing in front of Jesus. In all honesty. Okay. What would you feel standing in front of not only Jesus, but any person that you feel is a person of holiness? There's a certain awe about that you feel, right? It's not a bad thing. Okay. And so, we look, Heschel was saying, we look for wonder. And again, that aspect of it, and I have a lot that I disagree with Gadi on and all of this, and we've talked about it before, but, wonder is someone who can step back even from his or her immaturity and somehow comprehend the wonder of God. And that's, we're here on a Sabbath. What do you think Sabbath is all about? It's not just going to church, all right? God talks about bringing heaven and earth together. Well, that's what the Sabbath does. The Sabbath is the end of a process. The Sabbath is kind of a taste of what the final banquet will be like. So God is saying, work 6 days and then shut up and turn your phones off and strive for wonder, because when you understand wonder, you understand a little bit of what heaven is going to be like. And that's really reconciling heaven and earth. Okay? And therefore, one of the great concepts of Sabbath is reconciliation. We don't think of it that way. But one of our jobs on the Sabbath, if we're really going to understand the Sabbath, is who can I forgive today? Who can I reconcile myself with? Gadi talked about the word holiness before. Now for us, holiness is the same as harmony. And the more harmonious we are, the more together the earth and heaven are together, the more holy we are. If you can't be reconciled, you can't be holy. And if you can't be holy, you can't participate in the life of God.
And that's the Jerusalem. The word Jerusalem means the same shalem is peace, but it also means whole. Same word. So, yeah, reconcile. Absolutely. Okay, and then you stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. Again, the right hand and the power of the right hand. With your kindness, you guided this people that you redeemed. You led with your might to your holy abode. Okay, so this is totally a futuristic line. The verse begins with your kindness, meaning you didn't have to do that. You wanted to do that. You guided people. So the word people here, the word here, is the first time that Israel is referred to as an as a people, was by Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the first person when he wanted to trick them because they were growing and multiplying, and he said, let's outsmart these people. Because up until then, they were just a family that, of course, that grew and succeeded, but they were still a family. And Pharaoh recognized the first time that they are a people. He said, let's outsmart them and throw the babies into the Nile. So now God is flipping this term on its head, that we are the people of God. Our enemy saw us first as a people, but really it's not a negative, it's the positive. It's that it's the people that you redeemed. Now the word redeemed is you bought. That's the it's almost like you and we'll see it in a different place, that it is to, when God redeems us, it's always taking us to Him, right? To the sanctuary, to His under His wings, to the tree of life. It's always that movement. That's what redemption is about. And then you led with your might to your holy abode. Okay, so where is the holy abode? The holy abode is not there yet, right? We're talking about the tent of meeting that will become the temple and so forth. It's not there yet. So it means that it has a movement. And if you, this is so important, this verse is central, because the Israelites are on the move. I mean, it's an interesting, also to borrow the term, on the move. It represents something that somebody is doing something. They're not just idle. So the people of Israel, since they left Egypt, they're on the move. Literally and figuratively, we say the wandering Jew, right? But it really means that there's a movement. And how do we see the movement first? The movement starts the minute they left. God says to them, this is their calendar. They received the calendar. God said to them, right? Pointing, this is the month, the moon, the 14th of Nisan, or as it's referred to in the Bible as the first month of your calendars and years, which means that your life is not just to wander around. There's a purpose. And once Israel has a purpose, the other nations are reacting to that. And a lot of times when we speak about anti-Semitism, is something that the Bible and not the Talmud says, that it came together with the Torah from heaven. When the Torah came down from heaven on Mount Sinai, this is where anti-Semitism came down too. Because now somebody has a purpose, so they react to that purpose. You know, I want that purpose too. And they don't have it. You can always join this purpose, but you know, I guess the world is split to two. Those who want to join that purpose, and it's open to everybody, and those who want to take it away somehow or stop it in this world. The redemption that is in development.
And that's why the concept people of God ultimately becomes an ethical concept rather than some sort of tribal concept. Right? Initially, it starts out as the people of the covenant and so on and so forth. But even within Judaism, as I understand it, if you look at Jeremiah, I will give you a new heart, and so on. I will make a new covenant with you. That the people of God are no more part of a particular tribe, an ethnic tribe. It's not an ethnic concept anymore. It's an ethical concept. So anyone who believes in this God is part of this people. And as we see that more concretely in St. Paul, all right, the acceptance of the Gentiles and who become people of God. The Jews didn't stop becoming God's people. That was written in stone. Okay, but the concept itself was understood more ethically than it was ethnically. So.
If you have the belief in monotheism in one God, this is going to be different from all the other nations had multiple gods, and so they're battling each other, and you can never figure out what the heck is going on, who's going to win, the good God, the bad God, this God, that God. With Judaism and one God and monotheism becomes the grounding principle of that there's good and there is evil, and this working out between the good and the evil, it might be a little bit of chaos for sure, but the foundation of the world is not chaos. You know, God has made the world to be ordered, and you see the 7-day creation, and God is revealing that I am God, you're not. You know, Pharaoh, you're not. You know, this is a lesson that we have to keep learning. But if the people of God, then once we understand there is God, then we begin to say, okay, what is truth? What is goodness? What is beauty? And we begin to act differently. We elevate from our animal instincts and go toward heaven. So it's this battle is going on between good and evil, but evil will bring the chaos, and God wants to bring the order where people can live in harmony. So that's the battle. We first have to contend with that battle inside of us, individually, spiritually, go on this spiritual journey toward reconciliation and peace. And if not, then literally all hell breaks loose. If I'm not holding back myself because I'm learning that I'm not God, you know, and I need to serve God, and God gives the 10 Commandments, He gives order. I really, really have to say, you know, so much of our culture is crumbling in some places where, what do you mean not steal? Of course, that's what you do. You rape and pillage. If I have power and might, who's going to tell me no if I can take your stuff?
Same old's true for lying.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, all the commandments, you know, they're all there. So God is trying to bring order into the chaos. This sometimes chaos. But I think it's interesting that, you know, the Jews as a group, you know, really do they're really the first to kind of see that the world is rationally created. There's a purpose. There's a beginning and there's an end. A lot of the Eastern religions have the idea that everything's just a circle, like reincarnation and stuff. So it just keeps going. And then there's good times, but then there's bad times. And there's good times and there's bad times. And that's just the way it works. So Judaism comes with this other idea: God has created the world for a purpose, and we're heading toward the kingdom.
The destiny or destination that we don't just exist. We don't just go around.
And yet, the other thing we have to understand about monotheism is Judaism did not become a fully monotheistic religion until the time of till the exile. Okay? So when we see the 10 Commandments, I am the Lord your God, you shall not have strange gods before me. The monotheism of early Judaism was that there was only one God that you worship. And the rest of, you know, the Old Testament is like us growing up, okay? I mean, how many of us in our own lives have seen that dichotomy that we go to, quote unquote, honor God and go to church on Sunday? All right, yeah, amen. You know, that is the God. But then we live out our lives during the week worshiping many other gods. When in our life will we come to the realization that there is one and only one God who takes precedent? And that's a lifelong struggle. And that's what we're struggling right now. We live in such an either-or world that somehow we believe that we can believe that there's one God that we worship on Sunday, but then we can be prone to worshiping other gods during the week. And as long as we worship the God on Sunday, it's okay. That's not the message of Jesus. All right? So that's kind of, we're growing up. We are unfinished beings. All right? We are constantly recreating ourselves and the world. So we're unfinished. We're constantly moving into that place where hopefully there will only be one primary God in our lives. And that's the struggle of monotheism. People think, oh, you know, I mean, there's a point in the Old Testament where we have God that is married. We have a concept of God being married. You know, all of this is part of the growth process of the people of God. You know, we're not finished. We haven't reached our Sabbath yet. We haven't reached the New Jerusalem yet. We're unfinished people, and we're struggling to incorporate and understand what one God means to us. Totally. Not either or, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, what Don, well, I really elevated you.
I've been called worse.
What Don was referring to is as a process that the Talmud talks about. Yes, we've received the Torah on Mount Sinai, but that concept of oneness is a very hard concept to digest, right? Because you see all kinds of powers working in this world. So you want to attribute them their own powers. And actually, the Talmud says that the idol worshiping started by pagans not actually trying to worship the sun directly, but worshiping or attributing the power of the sun and admiring it, but still understanding that it came from God, the one God. But then in the process, they forgot it. Who's behind the sun? And they only stayed with the sun. So hence the Egyptians were worshiping the sun. So it's a big concept. It's a hard concept, of course, to digest. And the Talmud says that the Israelites kind of completed that process. Don was saying at the exile, it's in the time of the book of Esther and the story of Purim, that they were in Persia, and the same time as Daniel, around the same time, and they wanted to destroy the Jewish people entirely, and we were saved by the Esther and King Ahasuerus, and of course the hand of God. And it says that at the end of the book of Esther, it says, then they accepted and admitted to all of that. So the Talmud says they finally completed this full circle, because the book of Esther is the only book that doesn't mention the name of God. So it's totally the hidden hand of God. And so if you see the hidden hand of God, the one God, you've completed the circle. So, okay, good. So, so what happened? As we said, once the Israelites received the Torah, the word of God, then the other people are agitated somehow. So it could be envy, it could be all kinds of other things. And then verse 14, it said, people heard, right? I'm going to repeat verse 13 because just to get us, again, the connection. With your kindness, you guided this people that you redeemed. You led with your might to your holy abode, right? So the ultimate redemption. People heard, they were agitated. Terror gripped the dwellers of Philistia. Like literally the Palestinians, the people who lived in Palestine, in the Philistine, the place of the Philistines. Of course, the Palestinians today are not the ancient Philistines, but it's the same geography, right? Palestine is not it's geography. It's not nationality, right? Before 1948, the Declaration of Israel, Jews were Palestinians too, because they lived in the area of Palestine that the Romans called that instead of calling it Judea, because they wanted to erase the name of Judea. So they borrowed that term from the harshest enemies of Israel. They go, we'll show you now. If you rebel against us, we'll call this area after your worst enemies. So, but it's interesting. It's amazing, right? The state of Israel. It's just these are all processes. It's all steps in the same process. So, the state of Israel was established, but before that, they resisted that, and then they resisted more, and then we have 1967 when Jerusalem was unified, and who knows what they're now rebelling against, and who knows what's going to happen in the next stage. But we see these. It's amazing. I mean, this is a 3,500-year-old text, and we're dealing with the same ideas right now. And who thought even 150 years ago that Israel is going to be here, the Jews are going to come back to the land, and Jerusalem will be basically under Jewish sovereignty and all that. So it's incredible.
And we have to believe religion, the growth in religion is that. It's a growth. Right? We never come to the end. There's always more. That's the beauty in Christianity of the Spirit.
I disagree with that notion.
You do?
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
The point is, yes, it's growth and it's a process, but we do believe in the end of the process. We absolutely do.
Well,
that we want to arrive somewhere. We're not just going to continue round and round. Absolutely. It could be a very long process, but we believe that at the end,
well, obviously there's an
arrive.
end, because we can talk about the Sabbath as the end of the whole creation process. All right? So there has to be an end.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
All right? But again, we are constantly in the process of growing up. You know, religion kind of repeats itself in the minds and lives of people every generation. You know, and that's when the work of the Spirit comes into play. It never stops. It never stops because we never stop moving. And if we do, they call that the status quo, and people who are involved in the status quo will disintegrate. You believe in the status quo? Good. Stay there. You will soon be nothing.
Will be a quo. Yes, definitely. Anything that doesn't move is dead. Yes, absolutely. Then the chieftains of Edom were confounded. Trembling gripped the powers of Moab. All the dwellers of Canaan dissolved. So they, of course, they were agitated. Think of the people who lived in the land before the 7 nations, before the Israelites entered with Joshua the first time. Of course, they hear about all these miracles that God has wrought on them, and how he protected them in the desert, and how they defeated everybody that came against them in the desert. So of course, this is what it's talking about. So we know that this is a process that God is, this text is referring to future redemption. May fear and terror befall them. At the greatness of your arm, may they be still as stone until your people passes through. The Lord, until this people you have acquired passes through. So yes, love your enemy is one concept, but you also have to be happy when bad actors get off stage. So we do have that. It's not just that we have to love our enemy. We also need to hate our enemy, what they do. So this is what it means here, that yes, some people you want to disappear from this world.
And that's where I disagree with you.
Okay, I mean, you're welcome to, but when I think about the Nazis or I think about Hamas, absolutely. I have no second thought about, I don't want them to be in this world.
Well, we don't want them to be in the world, but reality is that we will never conquer evil. You will never get rid of evil.
Why not?
Because I'm speaking from the Christian perspective. The way that evil will be dealt with is the way we respond to it.
Can you be more specific?
Yeah, in other words, if evil confronts you, no matter where it is, all right? Evil, the end doesn't justify the means. You cannot use evil means to get rid of evil.
And implant them on the mount of your heritage. So think about it, 3,500 years before, there's a mountain where the sanctuary of God would be built, the foundation of your dwelling place that you, the Lord, have made, the sanctuary, my Lord, that your hands established. So God is establishing the roots of his abode here in the Sea of Reeds. It's not going to be back then. The roots are here, and what are the roots? That he uprooted that evil that wants to ride other people. Okay? Hashem, or the Lord, shall reign for all eternity. When the Pharaoh's cavalry came with his chariot and horsemen into the sea, and the Lord turned back the waters of the sea upon them, the children of Israel walked on the dry land amid the sea. That's the ultimate redemption, that God protects and shields the people of Israel. Literally Psalm 23. That's why Psalm 23 is the most sung psalm, and we sing it in happy occasions and in sad occasions, and funerals and on Shabbat. It's the psalm of transition, and the transition, the best way to arrive is through the process. And when do we arrive? We arrive when we trust in God that he will lead us through the dry land. That's when we arrive. So that's the basis for this song. And I would just add one line here, because Miriam then, the prophetess, sister of Aaron, took the drum in her hand, and all the women went forth after her with drums and with dances. Miriam spoke up to them, "Sing to the Lord, for he is exalted above all the arrogance, having hurled a horse with its rider into the sea." So she echoes the same thing as Moses did, and it basically is the title of the Song of the Sea, but it's the title, as we said, is the prayer, for all liturgy, and that prayer goes with redemption. So this is the title. If you have to choose, sometimes, there's an exercise that asks people, they ask rabbis, if you take one verse that you think summarizes everything for you, or you most connected with, I would choose this verse. So if you just remember this verse, you have the concentration of the whole Bible is the sing to the Lord, for he is exalted above all the arrogant, having hurled horse with its rider into the sea. Thank you for coming today on this important day, the Memorial Day, the Jerusalem Day, and God bless you.